Drama at the garden party as a guest of King Charles and Queen Camilla is duped by a fake picture of Lili, which has gone viral and overshadowed much of this meeting. The woman in question, one of America's top news women, Greta Van Susteren. She is a close ally of President Trump, was invited to attend the event at the British Embassy.
King Charles and Queen Camilla have arrived in America for the state visit, and by almost every measure, the opening days have been a success. But the visit has been overshadowed, predictably, perhaps inevitably, by the Sussex situation. An AI-generated image of a child claimed to be Lilibet went viral during the British Embassy garden party, was shared by a prominent American journalist who is a close Trump ally and has yet to be deleted despite being clearly identified as fake. And sources close to the Sussex inner circle are now describing significant tension within the marriage, specifically around Harry's opposition to Meghan's continued posting of their children online. Let me start with the garden party itself, because the event deserves credit before the complications are examined. Charles and Camilla had been in transit for the better part of a day, a long transatlantic flight, then tea at the White House, then a large diplomatic gathering at the British Embassy, all arriving at approximately midnight British time. By any standard, that is an extraordinary physical demand on anyone. For a man managing cancer, pausing his treatment to perform these duties, it is genuinely remarkable. And the footage of Charles at the garden party, working the room, engaging with every guest, deploying the warmth and the practiced ease of someone who has been doing this for decades, is not the footage of a man who is failing. It is the footage of a man who has decided that whatever it costs him physically, he will do the job he was anointed to do. The Ted Cruz moment is one of those small diplomatic details that reveal something true. Cruz arrived with his entire family, including daughters, who were clearly studying for exams and were not entirely thrilled to be at a formal diplomatic reception rather than at their books. Charles engaged them with exactly the kind of natural warmth and self-deprecating humor that makes this kind of diplomacy work.
The royal reporter closest to King Charles has reported the grief of Harry hangs over the event. And indeed, even though these front pages were very, very good news today for His Majesty, given that there were fears that his ill health and cancer battle could even stop him making the visit at all, a visit which was then shrouded in controversy because of the third attempted assassination bid on Donald Trump.
He told the studying daughter that he would be there tomorrow for the speech, that she should be there too. And the interaction was easy and human and completely without the managed stiffness that diplomatic events can produce. This is what decades of public engagement looks like when it has been done genuinely rather than performed. The Matt Friend moment, the American comedian known for his impressions, who does a Charles impression on CNN, is the other detail that circulated widely. Charles played along. He engaged with the comedian, kept trying, kept good humor about being imitated to his face. It is the kind of moment that no operational planning document can produce, because it requires actual human warmth and actual self-awareness rather than the performance of those things. And it generated the kind of coverage that no amount of PR management could have manufactured. The guest list has drawn some criticism. It was described by observers as a little flat, not the caliber of celebrity and political star power that might have been expected for a royal state visit to America at this specific historical moment. But the explanation for this is not poor planning. It is the security situation. A credible threat against the president, the third apparent assassination attempt, has tightened security protocols dramatically and made it very difficult to bring in large numbers of people who are outside the existing security envelope. The guests who were present were, by and large, within existing security arrangements. The people who might have added glamour or star power to the guest list simply could not be processed through the new security requirements in the available time.
This is a high-level diplomatic mission. It's been months, probably, if not a year in the planning. The idea that he's just going to start freelancing and go off and see his son, who just on Friday was doing his best to destabilize the trip and make the trip a problem, And of course, it was left to Donald Trump to point out the obvious, which is that Harry does not speak for the United Kingdom. So, just ignore these people.
Now let me address the elephant that has been present throughout the visit, the Sussex situation and what it is doing to the diplomatic environment. The most specific manifestation of this came through Greta Van Susteren, one of America's most prominent political journalists and a close ally of President Trump. She was at the British Embassy garden party, a guest, meeting the King and Queen. And at the same time, during the same event, she posted what was purported to be the first public photograph of Lilibet, Meghan, and Harry's 4-year-old daughter. The post went viral almost immediately. The photograph was quickly identified as AI generated. Community notes on the platform flagged it as fake, noting that similar images had been identified as AI generated and had not been shared by Meghan Markle. Despite this, Van Susteren refused to delete the post. Her response to people pointing out that it was fake was to describe the child in the image as gorgeous. Whether the failure to delete was stubbornness, oversight, or deliberate, whether Van Susteren genuinely did not understand that the image was fake, or understood and chose not to engage with the correction, is unclear. But the effect was clear. During the opening hours of what should have been an uninterrupted positive news cycle for the British state visit, one of the most followed journalists in America was sharing a fake image of the Sussex children and keeping it live over objections. Tom Sykes made the point that is worth examining carefully here. The proliferation of AI-generated images of the Sussex children on the internet is itself a consequence of Harry and Meghan's decisions about how to manage their children's public presence. There are genuine, real photographs of Archie and Lilibet available on the internet, photographs that Meghan has posted, photographs that the As Ever brand content has included, photographs from the Australian tour and from the Instagram account. Because those genuine images exist and have been put into the public domain, the AI systems that generate fake images have material to work with. Because audiences have been trained to expect Sussex child content, they are primed to accept what looks like Sussex child content. And because the line between what Meghan has actually shared and what has been generated has become blurred by the volume of both, people like Van Susteren get confused about which is which.
Every week at the London clinic, they did go very well. It did go very well. And the King is by no means out of the woods. He's made that clear, but I think he's a great inspiration to people living with cancer. I think he's a great source of comfort to people whose friends and family, whose parents are living with cancer. But yeah, I think that really from the King's point of view, I think that what has been so admirable about the way, and while I have my criticisms about the way that they've perhaps...
This is not an argument against ever sharing photographs of children. It is an argument that the specific approach Harry and Meghan have taken, partial, strategic, commercially motivated sharing of child content, has created a confusing information environment in which fake content is difficult to distinguish from real content. And that confusing environment has now, at a diplomatically critical moment, produced a viral fake image that has dominated coverage of the state visit in a way that no genuine photograph of either child would have. The marriage tension dimension is the one that sources close to the Sussex inner circle have been communicating with increasing specificity. Harry is opposed to Meghan's continued posting of the children. This is not a new observation. The contradiction between Harry's public advocacy against parents posting children on social media and Meghan's actual behavior has been noted many times. But what sources are now describing is something more acute, a specific, ongoing source of tension between the two of them, in which Harry's objections to the child content strategy are real, but are being overruled by Meghan's commercial calculations. The implication is that Harry understands at some level the problem. He knows that the child content creates the AI image proliferation. He knows that the image proliferation creates situations like the Van Susteren post. He knows that the Van Susteren post during his father's state visit is exactly the kind of collateral damage that makes everyone around him more convinced that the Sussex operation needs to be formally constrained. And yet the commercial operation continues because Meghan's assessment of the revenue requirements outweighs Harry's objections. That is a very specific kind of marital tension, and it is the kind that tends not to resolve easily. The grief of Harry that hangs over the state visit, the phrase used by royal reporter Robert Jobson, is worth sitting with for a moment. Charles is in America, doing the most important diplomatic work of his reign, while fighting cancer, while his son is in Ukraine, giving speeches that criticize American foreign policy, while fake images of his grandchildren he has barely met are going viral during his garden party. The grief is not just about the estrangement. It is about...
She's been told this is fake, and she hasn't removed it, despite her posts after it being about meeting the king and queen.
I'm slightly baffled by the whole thing, but I think that ultimately what I feel about this, Dan, is I feel that the Sussexes, frankly, are to blame for all these AI images of the children all over the internet that anyone can look up, that Greta Van Susteren has fallen for. Whether she has deliberately fallen for it remains the topic of debate. These pictures are all over the internet. But the point that I always make, Dan, is that you don't need AI to figure out what these kids look like, right?
The specific texture of what the estrangement costs in moments like this one, the inability to be proud of his son, the inability to look at what Harry is doing and feel that the father he raised is the man performing these actions. That grief is visible to those who know Charles well, even in the footage of him at his most professionally accomplished, working the room at the British Embassy, managing Ted Cruz's indifferent daughters, playing along with a comedian, doing impressions of him. The argument about when and how the titles should be removed has moved from theoretical to pressing based on the events of this week. Multiple commentators who have been cautious about calling for title removal have now explicitly done so. The specific sequence, Harry's Ukraine speech, the Van Susteren fake image, the continuing commercial use of the children's royal titles in as-ever products, the declaration that he is still doing the very thing he was born to do, has created a moment where the cost of inaction is becoming more visible than the cost of action. Charles's reluctance to act is understood and to some degree sympathized with. He is a father. He loves his son. He has cancer and the cognitive and emotional resources that cancer treatment demands. Creating a formal institutional rupture with Harry would cost him something personal that he cannot easily afford to spend. And the practical argument that removing the titles gives Harry and Meghan a new grievance to monetize, a new chapter of the victimhood narrative, a new reason to give interviews, has some force. But the practical argument against removing the titles is also weakening. The titles have already been monetized. The grievance narrative is already running. The interviews are already happening.
Within the marriage between the two of them. I think the fact of whether people are sharing these images online, I'm not surprised they are, and I'm not surprised people think they are genuine, because at this stage, let's face it, we're all just waiting for the highest bidder to pay Meghan for the picture of the kid, aren't we?
The diplomatic disruptions are already occurring. The additional cost of removing the titles, the new chapter it provides, needs to be weighed against the ongoing cost of allowing their use to continue. And that ongoing cost, at this specific moment, includes a viral fake image of a Sussex child during a state visit, a speech criticizing American foreign policy days before that visit, and the continuing assertion that Harry is still a working royal, performing the role he was born to do. William will remove the titles when he becomes king. That is the reporting from multiple credible sources. The question is whether waiting for William means waiting too long, whether the accumulating cost to the institution in the intervening period is acceptable. The answer to that question is becoming increasingly clear, based on what each week produces. It is not acceptable. And the people around Charles, particularly those around William, appear to be making that case with increasing urgency. The New York leg of the state visit is the next significant moment. The 9/11 memorial visit, the meeting with global leaders, the continuation of the diplomatic work that the British Embassy garden party began. Charles will carry it with the same professionalism and the same courage that he has brought to every element of this visit.
War's a bad thing and the war should end and that America should sort it out. And, very, very unhelpful 3 or 4 days before Charles is about to go off on the biggest diplomatic, the most fraught diplomatic mission of his life. But I felt that the following day, when Harry gave this interview to Chris Shipp of ITV, in which he said that he was still a working royal, I felt that it actually crossed the line, Dan, from being unhelpful to actually being cruel.
He looks better than expected. The treatment management around key public moments, the way the late Queen used to manage her health around the Jubilee and other significant events, is being applied here. He is genuinely impressive in the footage. A man at the end of his physical resources, somehow finding more and hovering over all of it. The grief, the son in Ukraine, the daughter-in-law's children on Instagram, the candles with the royal titles, the viral fake image at the garden party, the declaration of still being a working royal. All of it arriving during the week when Charles is doing the most significant diplomatic work of his reign, and when the contrast between what a working royal actually looks like and what Harry is performing at could not be more visible. Charles of the British Embassy engaging Ted Cruz's reluctant daughters with warmth and patience. Harry in Ukraine.
Get on the plane for the most important meeting of his reign. I thought it was unforgivable, actually. I thought it was unforgivable, but...
Totally. I completely agree. And there's a couple of key moments that I want to look at here. Because the first one, and look, you may have a different view on this, but I just view Chris Shipp as a complete propagandist for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. There were many follow-up questions that should have been asked. And what I saw was Harry being angry that Chris Shipp had gone there publicly and actually suggested that what Harry had said in Ukraine could impact the state visit. And it almost appeared that, even though we didn't see this, that Harry walked off in the interview,
looking toward his handler when the follow-up question about diplomatic impact gets too close to the truth. These are two members of the same family in the same week, showing two completely different things about what service actually looks like versus what it looks like when it is performed. And the comparison is not one that resolves ambiguously. It resolves clearly and in the same direction it has been resolving for 5 years. The king is in America. He is doing his job. He looks better than feared and is performing with the grace that the role requires. The Sussex situation continues to provide a running accompaniment of complications that the institution has to manage around rather than through. And somewhere in Montecito, the tension in the marriage that sources describe Harry objecting to the child content that generates the fake images that go viral during the garden parties continues unresolved because the commercial operation requires it to remain unresolved. That is the state of things as of this week. Not a crisis, not a collapse. Just the slow, grinding cost of a situation that everyone on the institutional side can see clearly, and that Charles, for reasons of love and temperament and illness, has not yet moved to formally resolve. The resolution will come. William will ensure it. The only question is the cost of the time between now and then. Let me go deeper on a few of the specific threads from this week that deserve more careful examination.
Look, on one sense, I'm reassured that Harry realizes his own unbelievable irrelevance and realizes that, not a word that he says is going to be taken seriously by the king or Donald Trump. On the other hand, what's the point in saying it? Then what is the point in saying it? Why are you trying to make everyone's life? Are you really still so bitter and so angry about your terrible upbringing in a palace and, the fact that you never had to pay an electricity bill in your whole life and suddenly you were astonished that you had to, pay your own way?
The Greta Van Susteren situation is not just a media curiosity. It is a case study in the specific damage that the Sussex approach to child content has done to the information environment. Van Susteren is not a tabloid gossip blogger. She is a senior political journalist with a long career in American television, currently at Newsmax, closely aligned with the Trump orbit. She was at a formal diplomatic event. She shared what she believed was a genuine Sussex photograph. And she was wrong. The image was AI generated, and she has declined to delete it. The reason she believed it was genuine is traceable directly to how Meghan manages the children's public presence. Meghan posts selective images of the children, enough to establish their visual presence in the public domain, enough to prime audiences to expect and recognize Sussex child content, but not enough to create a clear and stable visual reference that makes fake images obviously distinguishable.
Prince Harry today has said that he would like to see you do more to end the war in Ukraine. Do you think it's appropriate for a royal to make those comments ahead of the visit on Monday?
Prince Harry?
Yes, sir.
How's he doing? How's his wife? Please give her my regards, okay? No, I don't know. I know one thing. Prince Harry is not speaking for the UK. That's for sure. I think I'm speaking for the UK more than Prince Harry.
And obviously, the whole thing about Ukraine was clearly the hot potato issue. But for me, as a royal reporter, the threat that was actually much, much clearer.
The As Ever brand has featured Archie. The Australian Instagram posts have included the children. The birthday candles and their descriptions have established Lilibet as a dark-haired girl. The commercial and PR strategy around the children has put enough real content into circulation that AI-generated additions to that corpus are not obviously fake to people who are not paying close attention. Harry understands this problem. Sources describe his objections as ongoing and real. He has spent years giving speeches about the dangers of parents posting their children on social media. He has met with the families of young people who suffered serious harm from online exposure. He has cited those families as part of his advocacy. And in his own home, his wife continues to post the children in ways that generate AI proliferation, that contribute to the confusion Van Susteren experienced, and that ultimately damage both the children's privacy and the diplomatic reputation of the family. The fact that Harry's objections have not changed the behavior tells you something important about the power dynamic within the Sussex operation. Meghan is the chief executive. Harry is functionally the talent that the brand deploys. His input on strategic decisions is noted and then overruled when it conflicts with the commercial calculation. And the commercial calculation consistently prioritizes the revenue potential of child content over the privacy concerns that Harry articulates in public.
I will always be part of the royal family, and I'm here working and doing the very thing that I was born to do, and I enjoy doing it.
Now you're no longer a working royal. Do you feel emboldened? Do you feel like the shackles are off, that you can talk about things in the world in a way in which you couldn't before 2020?
What would worry me is if we live in a world where anyone in my position or anybody anywhere can't speak about the very things and the realities that we're seeing.
This creates a genuinely painful situation for Harry. He is publicly committed to child privacy advocacy. He is privately unable to prevent his wife from doing the opposite in their own home. And the gap between his public position and his private reality is, on this specific issue, visible to sources close enough to him to describe it as a source of great tension in the marriage. That is not a small thing. It is the kind of ongoing contradiction that, over time, erodes the foundation of a relationship. The Sussex Survivors Club angle that has emerged this week adds another dimension to the picture of internal unhappiness. The original Sussex Survivors Club, the name given somewhat darkly to the group of former Sussex staff members who left the operation under difficult circumstances and who have, over time, described their experiences in ways that are not flattering to the couple, has apparently been in communication with journalists again. Meghan is described as moaning about her 7 terrible years, a phrase that captures something real about the specific version of victimhood that the Sussex operation keeps returning to. 7 years. That is the frame. The 7 years since Harry and Meghan became public as a couple, since the wedding, since the departure from the working royal family. And in Meghan's accounting, those 7 years have been terrible. A sustained campaign of persecution, hostility, racism, and institutional failure. What is absent from this accounting, as it always is the other side of the ledger. The wedding watched by billions, the global platform, the Netflix deal, the memoir, the speaking fees, the Montecito mansion, the access to heads of state.
5% of the people who just get their news on their news feeds and aren't particularly interested in the royal family and see something or don't see something, they quite understandably think that this guy is a member of the royal family. It's interesting. I was meeting with a really influential communications consultant this morning who actually lives not far from in that part of the world, in California. And this person said to me, if you were advising Harry and Meghan, what would you say to them? I'm not sure whether there was ulterior motive here. And I said, do you know what I would say to them? I would say to them, A, drop your titles. Surrender your titles voluntarily.
The ability to command attention from almost any audience on the planet simply by existing, the extraordinary privilege that has coexisted with whatever genuine difficulties the 7 years have also contained. The moaning continues. The accounting remains partial, and the former staff members who experienced those 7 years from a different vantage point continue to describe something that does not match the official narrative. Now, let me address what the state visit is actually accomplishing diplomatically, because it is not just a backdrop for Sussex complications. It is a significant piece of work in its own right and deserves to be acknowledged as such. The relationship between Britain and America is at a genuinely difficult moment. Trump's approach.
Now, look, we've obviously seen at the moment Charles and Camilla at the White House, but actually even the first day, Tom, which was meant to be very low-key on this state visit, was quite a success. I want to talk about some of the highlights from this garden party, which was quite a laugh, actually. I loved this from Britannia Royal, and we can actually take a look at the video because Charles was having a great time and actually proving that he still does know how to very much deal with the public. So Britannia Royal posted a lusty scrumpet, tried her luck with King Charles. And I mean, she absolutely did adore him.
To international alliances has created uncertainty about America's commitments to NATO, to Ukraine, to the multilateral institutions that have structured the transatlantic relationship for decades. Britain, post-Brexit, is navigating a complicated position, simultaneously trying to be a close American ally and trying to maintain credible relationships with European partners who are anxious about American reliability. The visit is designed to demonstrate that the personal and historical warmth between the two countries can provide a stable foundation even when the political environment is turbulent. Charles is ideally suited for this specific diplomatic task. He has been around long enough to have personal relationships with multiple American administrations. He carries the weight of the historical connection. The crown represents something in the American imagination that goes back to the founding moment and that has never entirely lost its resonance. His genuine interest in the environment, in faith, in interfaith understanding and global cooperation, these are areas where he can find common ground, even with an administration whose positions differ significantly from his own. And his ability to engage warmly and naturally with people across the political spectrum without revealing his private views in ways that create problems is one of the core competencies of someone trained for this role from birth. The White House tea, the British Embassy garden party, the planned 9/11 memorial visit in New York, the meetings with civic and political leaders. All of it is calibrated to demonstrate that the relationship endures, that Britain remains a valued and reliable partner, that the Crown is a stable and consistent presence in a world where political leadership changes with every election cycle. And Harry, who was once supposed to be part of this world, who was once one of the most popular members of the royal family.
A lot of people were saying, like Alison Pearson was saying, oh, just imagine if it was King William and Queen Catherine arriving, how much excitement there would be. And I do think that is true. But actually, there has been a lot of excitement about this too. The mix of guests was interesting at the garden party. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was a bit Z-list. I really did. I thought they would have been able to get better stars, and I was quite surprised. But there was this quite cute moment that you refer to, and it's with this American comedian who was standing with Caitlin Collins of CNN and Tom Daley, the woke British diver who has been criticised for not wearing a tie, actually. And this guy was interesting because he's called Matt Friend.
Who could have built an American presence that complemented and supported the institution's diplomatic work, is in Ukraine giving speeches about speaking truth to power, while his father manages the diplomatic consequences of that intervention, and his wife posts their children on Instagram for commercial purposes. The alternate history of what Harry's American engagement could have looked like is genuinely poignant. A genuinely popular British prince married to an American woman with her own media profile, operating in the American cultural and political space in ways that reinforce the special relationship rather than complicating it, supporting the Invictus community in America, engaging with veterans organizations, using the platform that the Sussex brand could have been to actually advance the causes, mental health, veteran welfare, environmental protection that Harry genuinely cares about. That Harry operating in that way would have been an asset to this state visit rather than a complication. Instead, Charles arrives in America with Harry's Ukraine speech, creating diplomatic background noise, with the Van Susteren fake image going viral during his garden party, with the ongoing Sussex media cycle providing a constant accompaniment of complications that the diplomatic team has to manage around. The grief is not just personal, it is professional. It is the grief of watching what could have been this week and seeing instead what actually is. Charles at the 9/11 memorial will be a significant moment. He will bring to it everything that the crown represents: continuity, respect for sacrifice, the long view of history, the ability to be present in a moment of genuine solemnity without making it about himself. These are qualities that the role has developed in him over decades, and they are qualities that will serve the moment well.
The list did seem a little bit flat, and I think that's a fair criticism. But they do have this issue that there's been this dreadful, what looks like an attempted assassination attempt on the president. So the security has had to be changed. There have had to be adjustments made, and they're trying to get him in front of as many people as possible. So I think there has been a sense of, in a way, how he wants to be with young people. Of course, Ted Cruz's family are, great people to bring along because they're inside the security envelope.
And after the state visit ends and Charles returns to Britain, the ongoing Sussex situation will remain exactly as it was. The titles will still be held, the commercial operation will still be running. The marriage tension over child content will still be unresolved. The Africa tour will still be in planning. The Sandringham invitation will remain withdrawn, and the legal case against the Daily Mail will continue generating its own complications. Charles will return to Britain and continue his treatment, which he paused for this visit. He will continue to be king for as long as he is able. And William will continue to wait, watching from his position as future king, noting what each week produces, building the picture of what his accession will need to address. The titles question, the Sussex access question, the formal institutional separation that will eventually replace the informal arrangements that Charles has sustained through patience and love, and the genuine difficulty of acting decisively against someone you raised in love despite everything they have done. The king is in America, doing his job with courage and grace. The complications follow him, as they have for years. And the institution endures, as it has for centuries, around and through and beyond the complications that individuals, however consequential, bring to it.